So recently I went back to Gollum to see if we were too mean to it, to see if they actually fixed it. Spoiler alert, they didn't. It's still really, really bad, which shouldn't be a surprise because the company that made it is actually shutting down as a result of the terrible reception, which is a bummer, but I can't say it doesn't make sense. However, one of the comments I got on this video was from Sidharth. I'm not even gonna try. I'm sorry. But it was from this individual who said, quote, "You are just hate farming with this one, honestly. Where's Redfall, quote unquote, recoverage?" And I think this was in response to my pretty negative opinion of Redfall when it launched, which is something that kind of everybody felt. Because honestly, the game received some less than stellar reviews. It was totally broken at launch, and disliking it is not really a novel take or position in my opinion. I understand some people really enjoyed it, and that's awesome. I'm glad that you enjoyed it if you did. However, to pretend as though it didn't launch with mediocre reception at the very best is kind of crazy. However, I think what he's getting at is that while it may have initially launched bad, now it's good and it deserves recoverage. So let's go back and try Redfall again and see if it still is a broken pile of garbage or if it's actually become pretty good. And okay, here we are in Redfall, booted back in, and it's right off the bat not blowing me away. There's some pretty serious anti-aliasing issues. So let's go into settings and tweak it because we want to be fair. We don't want to like boot into old settings and then whine about those. So let's go into the settings. Let's just get outside first, and then we're going to tweak it. And as you can see in the top left, you can see all of the nitty gritty details that your heart may desire. Okay, so in here we go, video. We are in windowed full screen. That makes it so we don't have screen tearing in the capture. I have a wide FOV set because I get motion sick if it's lower. Everything is set to epic by default because that's how we roll. And there is no upscaling turned on. So if we're just looking at this, oh, for some reason anti-aliasing is off. If we just crank this and we back out, keep these settings, I actually think this looks decent, and there's no longer those really, really jagged edges that we saw before. So, no, it's improved. Oh, baby, that was rough. So it does seem like there are some stutters here and there, to say the very least. We were locked at 140. I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty good. And then we plummeted down into the 90s, which I know, woe is me, Luke, you have 90 frames in a game running at 4K. But the reason that that's a problem is because to go from 140 down to like 70 or down to 90 means it's dropping like a third of a second or half a second's worth of frames. And that causes pretty severe stuttering, which is why it's a problem. Let's go up the magic elevator, get to these guys, bop. So at this point, I would consider this to be playable. I mean, I don't think this is horrible. It doesn't seem as buggy so far, but then again, we are just getting going. So who knows what it'll actually be like as we continue exploring. The frame dips are pretty severe and performance is pretty inconsistent. Some areas we're at 140, other areas we're averaging in the low hundreds. Other times we drop into the 70s. So it's pretty inconsistent, but like I said, I think this is totally playable. And bear in mind, this is without DLSS or anything turned on. We're just looking at pure performance without tweaking anything. So if we go and actually turn DLSS on, I'm guessing that we're going to see some locked and loaded performance. Let's go quality mode. Yes, I'm sure. Keep it. And did that actually make performance worse? I think it might have. Hold on. I'm not going to move. Let's just stand in the middle of the road, okay? With like some stuff happening, leaves blowing and all that. Let's stand like right here, okay? We're at 108, 109, 110, about. Okay, let's just call it 109 is the average. Let's go settings, video, all the way down, change nothing else, but turn DLSS off completely. And then before we were using TAA high, and turn that off. So now it's rendering at native and we're actually seeing better performance. I'm not a graphics engineer or coder or anything, but that doesn't make any sense at all. The whole point of DLSS is that it's rendering at a lower resolution. So it should allow you to see better performance, right? So like if we go DLSS and we drop it all the way down to ultra performance, this should make it, I believe this means that it renders at like 720p and then it upscales all the way to 4K. So this should allow it to reach much higher frames, but instead we're getting weird like graphical artifacting around edges. Like, look at that. What's happening to the street textures? I have no idea what's happening. Like you see that on the street stripes or whatever those are, like whatever the yellow stripes are called. I don't know what that is. It's just weirdly glitching. Oh God, now it's in the 40s and 60s. What is happening? I don't think it, well, actually, maybe it did turn on. If you look in the distance, you see how like blurry and grainy it is. Maybe it did turn on. But now our performance is in the 70s, whereas rendering natively, it was in the 90s or up in the hundreds. What if I just turn that off completely, leave it on TAA, back out? Yes, I'm sure, keep these settings. Now it's in the 70s over here. I don't know, man. It seems like you just can't turn on DLSS at all. It seems like, if anything, it causes it to perform worse. Okay, I just looked it up, and apparently this is not just me that's feeling this. Okay, I put my native and high settings, get 55 to 60. When I put DLSS 2 quality, it drops in performance. How is this possible? I don't see nothing or even a small frame drop. So other people are seeing it, but the community is not feeling like it's a consistent thing. So maybe it's just a bug? I don't know. I mean, at the very least, it's not working the way it should be. At the very least, turning on DLSS should make it so it renders at a lower resolution, upscales, so you get better frames. That's the basic premise behind it. It definitely should not give you worse performance or introduce new graphical bugs that weren't there before. So that's weird. What about other upscaling techniques? Is like AMD FX 2.1 better? What if we drop this all the way to ultra performance? Is this gonna turn on and give us rates above 70-ish? A little bit. Okay, so this actually seems to have done something. I still, oh, the ghosting and like blurriness and foliage and stuff. I hate FSR2 with a fiery passion compared to DLSS. DLSS is magic and FSR is like hot steamy dog water, but you know what? At least this works. At least now we're in like 120 frames, even with all of the red smoke on screen. So I'll take it. So I guess first point, is performance better? Maybe bugs are fixed a little bit. I'm going to be testing that over the next couple of hours as I play more of this. But in terms of like consistent frames or anything, it seems that performance in general is just as bad, if not worse. Somehow that's it's shocking. And like I said, I'm going to be testing this over the next couple of hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn off upscaling. We're just going to play it natively and I'm going to enjoy the game that way, or at least try to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and play another few hours of Redfall over the course of this afternoon and evening, and then I will be back to share my thoughts on the game to see if the gameplay experience has actually been improved or if it's just more of the same, because I do want to see another comeback story. I mean, of course I'd love to see that. I would love to have another game that I fall in love with, that I become obsessed with. Oh, I was not supposed to come here. They do not like me. Oh, God almighty. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And Staker. Oh, yeah. Booyah. Okay, run away. Anyway, what I was saying is that I'm going to be playing this game over the next few hours, and then I'll come back and I'll share my thoughts and let you know if it is markedly improved or if it's just more of the same. Already I can tell the AI is not great, but who knows? Maybe the game will end up surprising me. Ooh, there's another one that just popped up. I mean, again, like, what is this AI? She's just like, oh, she's somewhere doing something. I'll just kind of chill and wait. Oh, that was my bad. I missed my shot. I'm a pro, I swear. Oh, pop goes the weasel. No stake equipped. Hold on, what if I do this? Nope. Oh, no, I did have one. Okay. I'll take it. So yeah, I'm going to keep playing. I want to give this game a fair shot because, again, it was kind of broadly dismissed back when it launched earlier this year. But maybe, just maybe, it's better now and is worth playing. So I'm going to do that We'll be back in a minute. So it's been a handful of hours. I've been running around having a jolly old time. And honestly, like, the whole thing is just more and more depressing the more I play it. Not only are the technical issues still there, I mean, they're still hitching all over the place. Performance is just not very good at all, especially when you cross over some arbitrary boundaries into different areas. You'll see frame rates just plummet. We'll see if we can trigger one just by running straight. There was a little hitch, but you're gonna see some big stutters here in a minute when I cross through this threshold. In the meantime, I'll also describe one thing I do like. I think the city that you're exploring, there was a little bit of one. I think Redfall in general is a really interesting place. I think the setting is fascinating. I think the frozen in time nature of like the waves crashing in is super, super cool. I like the setting of a coastal town that has some mysteries and twisted history at its core. I think that that's really, really cool and can work really well for a video game like this. And combining different abilities, like being able to jump, use little shields, do all sorts of stuff. I can call my, and I'm not joking about this, I can call my ex-boyfriend to fight with me. Watch, I'm not joking. See, I can go V, and then he comes, fist bumps me, and then fights for me. I'm not joking. This, of course, was at launch. There's nothing new here at all, which is something else we'll talk about in a second. But it just goes to show you, like, the tone of the game is still a little weird, and that is not something that gets better over time. It's still one of those games that's trying really hard to have quirky, cool, funny characters, and they constantly talk nonsense that is mildly annoying or even full-on aggressively annoying, depending on how often they talk about it. Let's give this guy a snipey snipe. Oh, pop goes the weasel. Hey. You're just food. And then they're gone. Yay. So as of right now, performance still sucks. There is a lot of load in and pop in when you go to new areas. There's weird like Z-plane fighting or artifacting on objects that you'll come across, but it's playable. I think it's just not well optimized or polished whatsoever. You see that huge drop in frames. We were in like the high 60s, 70s. We dropped down into the 40s, and then we run around here. Oh, more drops into the 40s. It's just all over the place. Very, very inconsistent. And this has all been so weird to me that I've been like, have they actually updated this game? Has it actually received patches and updates and things, or has it just been totally abandoned? Because it doesn't feel as though it plays better. It actually feels like in some cases it plays worse, with more stuttering, more weird AI behaviors where they just don't interact with you, where they're fighting you and then they just turn around and walk away while you're 3 feet away from them. Weird stuff like that is still here, but they have updated it. Like, they've done hot fixes for this. This one was June 22nd. And you can see they list some other things, like they improved some accessibility stuff. They fixed an issue where successfully destroying a nest was not awarding XP in single player sessions. Cool. AI, they fixed an issue where vampires would not correctly pursue players after teleporting in rapid succession. I actually ran into this while playing just now, so I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's a different sub bug. Like, it's the same bug, but it's a different bug. So they fixed that one, but not this one that I encountered like, 20 minutes ago before I started filming. I don't know. It's just baffling because across the board, they've done some little stuff, but across the board, it still is just nowhere near where it needs to be. And you can go on their Twitter page and you can see that they've still been posting stuff semi-irregularly, like once a week. Roughly, they'll post something. They're getting like 500 likes on each post, which is more than I thought they'd have. But other than this, I mean, there's really just not much here. Again, like the last time they retweeted a patch or a hotfix, which my understanding is this is the last hotfix that they sent out, was in June. And beyond that, there's just nothing else. And no shocker, the Steam reviews are also pretty atrocious. All sorts of people that have tried it, like I have, in recent memory and have just not had a great experience. I mean, there is not a single, well, actually there is great artwork style, little buggy, but still fun, great story. So Wolf the Cat liked the game. Good for you, buddy. Everybody else hates it, but I'm glad you liked it. Oh no, this person, Poxoltech Centipede, also liked it, but they refunded it. Oh my God, do you want to see what this review says? Okay, this is like a total diversion from what we're talking about in the video, but this is freaking hilarious. So we're gonna read this little Steam review and go on this journey with a Paxel Tech Centipede, okay? About 6 years ago, I was in a bad car accident that left me paralyzed from the neck down and mute. My only real effective way of communicating is by blinking, once for yes, twice for no, etc. I have always been a huge gamer, and my brother has too. When I lost the ability to play for myself, I fell into a spiraling depression. All those hours I spent with Steam friends, all those amazing memories, never to be repeated. My brother, bless him, picked up on this and offered to play the games I wanted to for me while I sat behind him in my wheelchair and watched. With tears in my eyes, I agreed, and I have been playing vicariously through him ever since. When Redfall was announced, we both became super hyped, and I couldn't wait to watch him play it. After pre-ordering it and waiting about 3 weeks, the wait was almost over. He preloaded the game, and after 2 more excruciating days of waiting, we finally got to play it. He wheeled me into my favorite spot just behind my old computer chair, loaded it up, and selected our character. After watching him play for 4 agonizing hours, I couldn't take it anymore. With the holy will of God himself, I screamed internally at my muscles to obey me. I just needed them this one last time. I had to make it stop. With every ounce of strength I had, I slowly pushed myself out of that wheelchair and hobbled over to the computer. Not knowing how long this divine power would last, I shoved my brother aside and desperately fumbled with the mouse and keyboard to write a refund request. As I watched and waited for my confirmation email with tears in my eyes, I knew that while my body had been healed, my mind would never be the same. God bless you, Arkane Austin, for giving me my autonomy back. So, you know what? I would consider that a positive review. I'll give him that. Well done, Arkane. But okay, not all of the reactions and responses have been that positive. In fact, the best way that you can get a feeling for a game's community is usually by popping over to the subreddit for that game. You can learn a lot about a community based on that. Right now, in the Redfall subreddit, there are 8.8 thousand members, not great, and 19 people online. So you know what, it's a smaller community, especially for a game with Xbox behind it, but you know, it's not something to shake a stick at. There's still 8,000 members of the subreddit. That's decent. What's kind of sad though are these posts by people asking, in this case 8 days ago, is the game abandoned? Is there any news about offline play in 60 FPS? And a little backstory to this, basically they promised that we'd have 60 FPS on console. That's not happened. And then they also promised that they would be adding offline play, because as of right now and as of launch, you have to always be online to play Redfall. There's no offline play, which is baffling. But you know what? That's just, it is what it is. And as of yet, there is no update. All they've said is soon, and that's it. Nobody knows anything more than that. And the general reaction from most people is game is dead. It was abandoned before it released. There are dozens of us, I say. Sadly, it seems like it's been abandoned. I'm still here waiting for the 60 FPS patch. Yeah, it's abandoned. Game had so much potential, but it was wasted. And bear in mind, these are the people that are members of the Redfall subreddit. Like, these are the people that would be rooting for the game if anybody was going to root for the game. And they are totally crestfallen. I mean, they've been radio silent effectively for 3 months. They've not said anything through the rest of June, going into July, August. Now we're into September, going on 4 months of just no news whatsoever. But one thing to keep in mind with this too is on the main menu of the game, they actually still ask you to upgrade to the Bite Back Edition. What's the Bite Back Edition? Well, this is the premium deluxe whatever version of the game that costs $100. And yes, it still costs $100. It's still $70 on Steam. Yes, you can play it on Game Pass, but you still would have to upgrade with 30 bucks to the Bite Back edition if you wanted that for some reason. And in this little package with the Bite Back edition, they promise that you will also be getting the Redfall Hero Pass. Play as 2 future heroes, meaning effectively DLC. They've not brought new heroes. They have not introduced DLC. None of this has happened except for, like, I think the outfits are currently in the game, but you better believe I'm not paying 30 bucks to find out. So they seem obligated to put out DLC and these extra characters, but again, they haven't said anything for months. Nobody even knows if they're going to get the game running where it should have been at launch, much less add DLC. And Bethesda Softworks' Pete Hines, to be clear, this is Bethesda Softworks, not Bethesda Game Studios. Softworks is above Bethesda Game Studios, and then Arkane is also over there, as are a bunch of other studios. Bethesda Softworks is the publishing house, and Pete Hines is a head honcho over there, and he said that Redfall will eventually be a good game, compares it to Fallout 76. What he said specifically was, quote, "We are the same company that has had launches that didn't go the way we wanted, and we don't quit or abandon stuff just because it didn't start right. The Elder Scrolls Online's PC launch was not flawless, but we stuck with it. Now it's like this insanely popular multi-platform. It's the same with Fallout 76, and Redfall is no different from us." I'm realizing now that, like, they've had a lot of these kinds of launches. Maybe you should do something to not have those terrible launches in the first place, but that's just me. He says, okay, we didn't get the start we wanted, but it's still a fun game, and we're going to keep working on it. We're going to do 60 FPS. We're going to get it to be a good game because we know as a first-party studio, Game Pass lives forever. There will be people 10 years from now who are going to join Game Pass, and Redfall will be there. Good on them. I hope that does in fact happen. But they gotta be more transparent with this. The fact that it's been months since the last update, since the last murmur from the studio, other than a GIF or a small picture that they put on Twitter or X, I think that's totally unacceptable, especially because there are people that paid $100 for a broken pile of garbage and DLC for that broken pile of garbage. And as of right now, there's no information as to whether or not they're actually going to get that extra garbage to put on top of their garbage. And just in case some people are like, well, it's definitely going to get the updates and everything because he said that, and also because they have to put out DLC because they sold it to people. Well, there is a precedent that would establish that they don't actually have to do that. Back in 2014, Ubisoft sold Assassin's Creed Unity to everybody, including a season pass that offered a bunch of DLC and stuff like that that they planned on doing. We all know how Unity went. Not great. And so they decided to cancel all plans for DLC and instead offer people the chance to buy basically a Ubisoft game of their choice in exchange for the season pass that now was not going to be fulfilled. Honestly, I don't remember this from back in 2014, but it does make sense when you consider how terribly Unity was received at launch. But still, I mean, they got away with this apparently, and they just offered a free game. And they also included Assassin's Creed Chronicles China as well. So they tried to throw a lot of bones to people who paid for the season pass since they apparently couldn't just refund it, I suppose. I don't know. And they also did this for people who bought the gold edition of the game, not just the season pass holders. Those people that got the gold edition of the game were able to get The Crew, Far Cry 4, Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, Rayman Legends, or Just Dance 2015. Oh, baby, for free. Well, to be clear, they could pick one of them, but still, I mean, they tried to throw a bone at the very least, which I would consider to be a better move than just pretending as though nothing's happening and disappearing. I mean, I think that's way worse. You know, this is one of those things where if people have to ask, is this game abandonware? Something's gone terribly wrong. Like, you shouldn't have to ask because you should just have the communication and everybody should know. But even the community, the most hardcore fans of Redfall, even they are unsure if they're ever going to get the DLC they were promised or if they're going to be compensated in some way. Even if Xbox came along and said, listen, we're going to cancel the DLC plans for obvious reasons. We'll update it to allow for 60 FPS support, but instead of DLC, we're going to throw like a year of Game Pass for free at you. I think that would be a reasonable settlement that would make everybody happy, and we can move on and just forget about Redfall, because frankly, there's no amount of patches that are going to fix the problems within Redfall at its very, very core. I mean, at the bottom of the barrel of Redfall, there is just a rotten core. There's just mechanics that aren't that fun, AI that is freakishly stupid, a loop of collecting weapons to swap in and out, and then listening to characters give weird attempted witty quips, and then explore a world that initially seems interesting, but that doesn't actually have very much depth at all to it. All of that is not going to be fixed with some hot fixes and patches. Those are things that are only addressed in remakes or sequels. And because of the response and reactions to Redfall when it launched were so negative, there's just no way that they take that risk. I mean, why would they do, oh geez, that was a bad one. Why would they do all of that work when right now the most hardcore fans of the game are totally crestfallen and are convinced it's abandonware? Like, there's just no recovery for it. It's over. It's too late. But I mentioned when I came back on camera after playing this for a while that I think this is a really heartbreaking game. And I do. I mean, I think that there is a version of Redfall that could be pretty fun, especially with friends, that could be interesting to explore, especially like, again, I like the idea. I like the pitch of the setting. If you were to describe this to me on a whiteboard or in a slideshow in an early planning meeting of Redfall, I think I'd be on board. I'd be like, oh, that does sound super fun to explore and navigate. It's just not well executed. It doesn't tie together. I don't like the weird hipster characters. I think you got to rework those. The core gameplay loop of a co-op shooter built around gear is just something I'm sick and tired of at this point. So while initially I think there were a few good ideas, it just isn't enough to make a really great game. And while some people did enjoy the game, and I'm glad that they did, it seems like Xbox and Arkane Austin have totally abandoned them at this point. And if they do eventually come out with a 60 FPS patch, shout outs, I will probably try to make a video, or we'll try it on stream or something, and I'll give them credit where credit is due. But they should be more communicative than being radio silent for like 3 months and not even communicating with the audience as to whether or not that patch is even still planned on coming. That I think is just totally unacceptable, whether you're a fan or not. And then there's the stupid AI. I mean, hey, how's it going? Oh yeah. Oh, good job, buddy. Okay, that was a little funny. Hold on, my boyfriend's gonna fight you. Watch this. You ready? He's so mad. Come here, boyfriend. I don't know why. You see the popping on his tattoos. I don't know who thought that this was like a funny, like mechanic. Like, oh, not even your boyfriend. We're gonna have your ex-boyfriend come and fight for you. Like, what? No part of it makes any sense at all. It's really freaking weird, and it kind of makes me uncomfortable. You know what it's like? It's like Jack and Rose in Titanic. You know how like in the movie, Jack is the love interest, but then of course, spoiler alert, he's a goner. And then she goes out, lives a very fulfilling life. She has another husband. She has a bunch of kids. She lives a very awesome life with presumably a family that she lived with for decades of her life. But when she dies, she goes back onto the Titanic, this death trap in this dream sequence, and then sees the guy she hooked up with when she was in her 20s, not her family she had known for decades and decades. Like, in the context of a film, it makes sense because we didn't see the family, so we're not connected. But when you really think about it, it's like really screwed up and dumb. And this whole thing with like the weird vampire ex-boyfriend, that makes me think of that whole problem with the movie. I don't know how connected those thoughts are. Maybe this is just a like an ADHD episode I'm having. And I mean, do with this information what you will. This is one of those moments where I'm like, you know what? Normally, I think we cut that out of the video. You know, I've talked to Jacob, my editor, and I've been like, oh, sometimes I think we should trim things like that out. But you know what? In these cases, I think maybe it's interesting for you to see the behind the scenes rambles that normally Jacob has to edit out of these recordings. Oh, that was choppy. In order to make a legible video. Because there's a lot of these normally that get trimmed out where I just start rambling about, oh, this weird thing in this video game where I call it an ex-boyfriend, even though that's kind of weird that I'm still so attached to my ex-boyfriend and he's going to fight for me in this life or death situation instead of like an actual loved one or somebody I care about currently. And that reminds me of this thing in Titanic, a movie that released like, what, 26 years ago? And I think that plot hole is really, really weird. Then I ramble about it for 4 minutes and I'm still doing it now. So I'll stop talking. Well, you know what? I think Redfall just broke my brain. I think that's the lesson to take away from this. Redfall is seemingly abandonware, though Pete Hines is saying it's totally not, even though there's not a lot of reason to think that it is still being worked on, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And beyond that, it's also just something that's going to break your brain and fry every neuron that remains, and it will turn you into a babbling buffoon like me. But with that, thank you for watching. I love you all. Make sure to subscribe to the channel to see new gaming videos when they pop up. Follow me on all of my socials. We're on TikTok now, and we're doing a lot of cool stuff with the fellow youths on that platform, so make sure to follow me there. And of course, if you have a game you'd like to see me give another fair shot, make sure to comment that down below. I would be happy to give it a try. But with that, thank you for watching. I love you all. See you in the next one. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.